Welcome to the Dynasty Deep Dive. It's your boy, Johnny Tuma. And I have a very special guest, man of the company, player profiler's own, Pete Nova, the self-proclaimed defense and special teams guru. What's going on, Pete? How are you today, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I know we've been trying to get this in the works for a little bit, so I'm glad to hop on. And yeah, DSTs. I'm the defensive guy. If you like defense, I'm your man. So excited to roll with the show today.
Yeah, excited to have you. And that's kind of what Dynasty Deep Dive is all about, is like love getting people who have a certain focus and diving deeper into their brain and how they're analyzing those things. So today we're going to be talking about defense and special teams, and with a little bit of a dynasty flavor, which is kind of fun because like we call these dinosaur leagues now, right? Like when you're in a dynasty league that still streams a defense, that's a rare breed, right? It's moving more into like everybody's like, get rid of the kickers, get rid of the defenses, do the just add an extra flex in there. Personally, I think it's like a fun strategic wrinkle, and it makes you be more invested in the entire game of football. So I'm a fan of having defenses and even kickers. Shout out Kaimi Fairbairn. That dude got me some bank last year. But let's talk defenses, special teams a little bit. So, my first question for you today was, there's this kind of two opposing strategies, right? Go in your draft or pay up and get a anchor defense, something like a Philadelphia Eagles or a Denver Broncos, who is going to be one of the top units in the league. The other school of thought is like fade defense entirely. Don't invest a lot of assets, draft capital, whatever you want to call, assets in that example, and just stream weekly, right? Hunt the defenses who are playing the bad offenses and stream them. So can you just talk to me a little bit about your mindset around, would you rather be a streamer or have one of those anchor top defenses?
Yeah, I mean, if you know me, you know that I love streaming defenses. I appreciate the flexibility. I don't. The defenses are kind of like relievers in baseball, where like they're volatile year over year. Because there's just so many different things that happen, right? That like it's not like an offense where there's continuity. It's the same quarterback, right? Like they're running the same plays. Defense is all reactionary, and so there's not necessarily a lot of luck to it, but it's volatile year over year. Last year, 7 of the top 10 defenses that went from an ADP standpoint didn't finish inside the top 10. And so I think that's pretty telling, right? I mean, you look at the top 5 defenses, which would be the New York Jets, who finished 25th. You have the 49ers, who finished 21st. Cowboys were 3rd, finished 15th. Ravens were 4th, finished 14th. And you had the Browns, who were 5th and finished 25. So none of the top 5 defense even finished inside the top 13.
Wow.
And so to me, I let people just, pick defenses, and I'll continue to take shots on upside players. I think I look at the defensive position, and I like the flexibility of being not married to a defense. Sometimes, like if I draft, like take last year with the New York Jets, like you draft the Jets and you just feel like, oh, I can't drop them because they have a really good matchup of a couple games from weeks 6 to 8. And I drafted them. They were the number 1 defense I took that anybody took in the draft. Like I like having the flexibility and not feeling married to it, because I want to play matchups, right? A lot of really bad defenses last year finished top 5, right? Like, and it's just because of those matchups, right? If you look at last year, like defenses like the Saints finished 4th at one point. You had the Commanders, who finished 2nd at one point. Saints finished 2nd as well at one point. The Falcons, who were terrible, finished 1st in week 16, which was the semis before the championship. And they were terrible. Falcons were like bottom 5 in sacks all year. But if you start to look at the certain things, and I always look at, when I stream a defense, man, I always look at low Vegas totals, right? I always look for low implied totals. I look for home teams, and then I just look at the EPA metrics, which I know maybe people don't want to go that deep into it, but that's why people come and try to look at my content a lot of times, because I'll do the work for them, where I just look at bad offenses EPA wise, right? Like where they're just not efficient. And if I get a combination of all three, where I can get a home team, a bad EPA offense, and a low Vegas implied total, like that's like a perfect storm for me. And it's a formula that really worked well for me last year. To end that point, like last year, I had 11 out of the 17 weeks, I picked a defense that finished top 5, right, that were 25% owned or less, which is the
Wow.
definition of a streamer, right? So
Yeah.
it's just that hit rate is there. You just like, so to me, it's just there's no point of spending capital, right? And I just feel like sometimes you feel married to that defense, like you got to keep them because you invested in them.
Right. Dude, I was already in the streaming camp, but that's some damning evidence that you brought up about those top 5 drafted defenses and where they finished. And to your point, like I think the one other nugget people can hang on to there is like the sunk cost kind of concept, right? Like just because you paid up for a defense, like if they're not showing it through the first couple of weeks, like don't be afraid to jump ship. Don't be afraid to start the streaming. And I always like to plan, to your point, maybe a week or two out. Like if I
Sure.
see someone's
Yeah.
got a juicy matchup coming in a week or two, then I might load up on them. If I've got another defense I'm comfortable streaming that week, because in Dynasty I'm holding 2 to 3 defenses during the year. And so my next question for you is sort of through that Dynasty lens. Like again, I have in one of my leagues right now, I dropped all my defenses except for the Chiefs and the Texans, because I think, oh, they're pretty solid defenses. They've got some young guys. They'll continue to be good year over year. Are you ever like trying to go out and get a Denver Broncos and willing to like, you know, try and work them into a trade? Obviously, you're not just trading for the defense, but maybe there's a player you like, or you're willing to slightly downgrade on a position just to acquire an elite defense.
I always try to maybe get a throw in, right? Like that's how I view the defenses in Dynasty and all the leagues I've played in, where I try to just add it as a sweetener, right? If maybe I can't get a guy to add a third round pick, which I always try to just add in deals, right? Like if I could get somebody to just kick in a third, like I always think of it like that. And I try not to like sour trade deals doing that too much. But if someone's not budging, then I'll look at their defense and say, can I get an upgrade with their defense for what I currently have? And that's usually how I look at it. What I would say is if I'm drafting defenses, I typically try to I try to look more far out, right? Where a team like the Eagles are consistently investing in their defense, where, as I shared initially, right, it's volatile year over year, but I know that they're replenishing the pipeline
Yeah.
every year. 49ers are the same thing, where I know people are concerned that they quote unquote took a step back, but they replenished through the draft. They get a lot of comp picks. So that's how I try to forward think when I am drafting. If it is a startup, when I'm looking at the defense, is I just try to look at teams that have made an emphasis to continue to compound on strengths of their team. And a team like the Eagles is a perfect example.
Yeah, I will be the first to admit I have never successfully acquired a defense through a trade, because it's
Mm,
like people get hairy about like, oh, they're a really good unit. And I'm like, okay, I don't care that much. You know what I mean? I'll
yeah,
go stream them like, and I'll be just fine. Right. Cause like a team like the Eagles, they're real good, but then they're also in a division with like high scoring offense like the Cowboys, another high scoring offense like the Commanders. They got to play them that's 4 games a year. That's a tough start in terms of like the matchup, right? And
sure.
same with you and I are both huge Broncos fans. They got to play the Chiefs twice. They've got to play the Chargers twice. Like those aren't the most favorable matchups, right? So shifting gears a little bit, I'm going to throw something up on the screen that you showed me, and I'm going to ask you to break it down for the viewers.
Sure.
Here we go. So you sent this to me right before the show. It looks really good, but could you just give some more color as to what this is and what people can infer from it?
Yeah, I mean, so this is just ADP. So the left side is just where teams ranked in the pre-draft process on consensus for fantasy
Oh,
pros.
this is 2024 too. So
Yeah,
this is looking back.
2024.
This is
Yeah.
actuals, not
Yeah,
projected.
this is
Okay.
this is all the data, but if you look, like, a good example is you look at the Green Bay Packers, you look at the Vikings, you look at the Broncos, right? Those defenses were all drafted, past 20, right? And those three defenses all finished inside the top 4, right? And so that's a perfect example of, like, look at the Broncos, how high they were. They were picked like 31st on defense. I don't even understand why people, I think people looked at the Dolphins game the year before. They
Yeah.
figured bad defense, and Vance Josephs came back, right? And so they expected. So that's part. And again, like your point, like, they played in division with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and so
Yeah.
maybe people just didn't draft them. But this is just a good example of just, like, you get a feel for these defenses that were drafted high and they did not, provide. If the red dot is very high on the chart, that means they did not perform well. That's
Yeah.
that's the best indicator. And then the black line is strictly just like where they were drafted, and it starts to incline, as it gets later on.
Yeah. So I love it. Now I understand it. The lower red is a good thing because
Yes.
that's where they ranked and they finished. And you're saying a majority of those teams on the back half, or not a majority, but the Packers, the Vikings, the Broncos, Chargers, and Rams, all top end fantasy defenses that were later drafted. So really interesting graphic. I really like that you put this together. And yeah, I was just looking back and it was like, yeah, we played the Seahawks in week 1 last year, right? So that was like, maybe some people kind of had cold feet about us going in to that was at Seattle, right?
Sure.
And I think that's a lot of goes into the draft, like where these teams get picked is like, what do their first few weeks look like, right?
Mhm.
As well. So,
That's a good point. The best way to look at this chart, Johnny, is if the red dot is below the black line, you outperformed your expectations.
yeah,
If it's above the black line, that means you underperformed your expectations. And you can see a lot of those are very severely underperforming, right? As you can see, those top 5 in the beginning, the first 5 teams, how high up they finished, right? Which we talked about initially.
So let's dive in a little more about like some of the offseason moves, some of the potential, like spotting some of those teams that maybe are, going to be drafted a little later who actually made some solid improvements. So my next question for you is just from like a defensive unit perspective, like D lines, cornerback, those types of position groups. What do you think is the most improved position group on a certain team?
I think at least my favorite is the 49ers. I think they improved their run defense significantly. Last year, their run defense was ranked 26 amongst their defensive linemen. They had a 46.9 grade. It was really, really bad. But in the draft, I mean, if you look at the departures, they lost Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd. Collins had a 42.8 run defense grade. Javon Hargrave had a 44.7. Leonard Floyd had a 54.4. Those guys were departures, and guys might sit there and say, 49ers are losing all these guys. They lost Greenlaw. They lost Hufanga. Greenlaw barely played last year, and Hufanga missed a lot of games too.
Right.
So those guys are, I mean, it's not like they're losing already to a defense that was bad last year. They lost all these guys. But then in the draft, they brought in Mikael Williams, right, who I think is versatile in his alignment. He's got really good length. They brought in Alfred Collins, long arms, and again, another guy that has flexibility. CJ West, who's a big boy, high energy, and they also upgraded. So those 3 guys on the front should really improve that run defense. And then on top of it, even forgetting the front 7, they also brought in slot and nickel upgrades in Upton Stout and Marquise Siegel in the secondary, who also are very good run defenders coming out of college. So I think it's a really improved group. When you also factor in that Robert Saleh's coming back, I'm very interested to see how they do, and it's a really, really easy schedule. They really, I mean, probably the best schedule for a defense on the entire slate, at least projecting initially. Again, this is why I don't invest in defenses heavily, because offenses look good before the season starts, and then or offenses look like they're not going to be good before the season starts, and then there ends up being teams that outperform, right? So it's hard to project, but before the season starts, at least now, 49ers have probably the best schedule on out of all the defenses that you could look at.
Interesting. Was not on my radar. I'll be honest. I think first off, Upton Stout, great name. But they were not, to your point, like as a Broncos fan, I'm like, oh, we got Hufunga, we got Greenlaw. Like, what are they doing over there in San Francisco? And I think a lot of people were probably thinking the same thing. But you heard it here first. Dynasty Deep Dive. Pete Nova says that the 49ers have significantly upgraded their run defense and could be a top unit again in 2025 with Robert Saleh back pulling the string. So don't go anywhere. After this, we're going to dive even deeper into who we think the most overall improved defenses are, and defenses to pick on, and our best overall defense. So don't go anywhere.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with superflex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams. And then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs. And then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
Yeah, you got to go all in. That's my opinion. Use Fantasy Picasso to get that $25 off. And Pete and I, we just helped contribute to the draft guide as well, which is part of the all-in package. So whole suite of tools that you need to win your fantasy leagues, all on Player Profiler. I love our data analysis tool. I love all of the tools on the all-in package. So getting back into it, I will kind of lead with who I think is the most improved overall defense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'm going to go with the New England Patriots and Mike Vrabel. Did I steal?
You did.
I robbed you? Yes. This is why I went first, because I wasn't going to let you just like suck all the air out of the room. Robert Spillane. I heard a Raiders fan tell me he was like the next Fred Warner. I don't know about all that, but Robert Spillane could play. He's a decent linebacker. They got him. Yeah. They got Carlton Davis, signed Harold Landry from the Titans, Milton Williams to help on the defensive interior. It's this is a team that has historically been a great defensive team. They're rostered in like 30% of leagues on Sleeper. So you already agree with me. They're the most improved defense. They are on waivers in my Dynasty League that I mentioned. I have the Chiefs and the Texans. Do you think I should? And again, you think about the division they play in, like the Jets offense doesn't really move me, right? The Dolphins, like there's some question marks there. Obviously, the Bills, you're not going to throw the Patriots out when they're playing the Bills, but are they worth picking up?
Well, I'll tell you that I did a startup with defenses, and they are the only defense that I drafted. Now,
cool.
We do have limits on defense, so you can only own 2. So it just keeps the pool where there's still at minimum 12 defenses out there to stream and stuff. But
that's cool.
So I took the Patriots. I like them. I think you're a good shot, right? I mean, you mentioned all the guys. I also think it's interesting they have Clavion Chasen, who I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to be or Clavon. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but whatever.
Oh, it was pretty close. I liked it.
Yeah, he was first round pick from Jacksonville in 2020, right? So interested to see how he can maybe rebound there. He's only 25 out of LSU. But yeah, I think to your point, like Milton Williams, big addition. They brought in Carlton Davis too. I don't know if you had mentioned him, but I think he can add to that secondary. I think their talent in the secondary is pretty high. I think it's at least a top half secondary. I think their biggest thing is their pass rush has to improve, I think. So we'll see. I mean, Milton Williams is definitely a good addition. He can rush the passer. Harold Landry can definitely help in that regard too. So we'll have to see. But this is a defense that 29th in EPA per play, 32nd in sack rate. I think that just gives them a ton of room to improve. It's hard not to improve from being one of the worst defenses in the league. And the addition of Vrabel, I think, provides really, really big upside. And I think he can get the most out of his players. So yeah, I think it's a really good pick. I didn't want to go with the Broncos because it feels like it would be too easy. And that's one of the better defenses last year, if not the best. Well, I'd say the Eagles were the best, but how much more can they move up? Whereas the Patriots have a lot more runway to improve based on their ranking overall from last year.
Dude, Mike Vrabel reminds me of like Burt Reynolds in the newest The Longest Yard. Like, if shit goes down, if it goes south, he will just put the gear on himself.
I did not see the new Longest Yard.
Oh my God, man. Like, it's like not even new at this point, but like there's the old one, like where Burt Reynolds is Adam Sandler. And then the new, you saw the one with Adam Sandler, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's a classic. That's a good ass movie. But yeah, Burt Reynolds goes in there to like score the 2-point conversion or something at the end. And it's just like, Vrabel is no nonsense. And I think he's going to show them how to do it. And, he's always been, when he was with the Titans, they had a solid defense. And so that's a fun one to watch this year. Again, really low owned. Probably, I think they will surprise some people and end up being rostered in a majority of dynasty leagues sooner rather than later. Okay, next question I had for you. Biggest team in 2024 that you expect to kind of continue the trend in 2025 that made a defensive impact that might not be common knowledge. So I'll give an example. Like, I didn't really realize that Baltimore had far and away the number one rushing defense in yards per game. Is there another defense like that where you're like, maybe not everybody understands how effective this team was in a certain area of defense, and I could see them continuing that in 2025?
Yeah, I think it's the Lions, which was surprising to me when I was trying to do a little research to prep for this. They were third versus the pass in EPA, pretty high. They don't really have a ton of like big name players, in that secondary, right? And so they add DJ Reed, who I think can definitely help on the back end there.
Yeah.
It's also a defense that was second in completion percentage allowed and seventh in interception percentage. So secondary, like they made the most out of their opportunities. And I'm kind of interested to see, I mean, if they're healthy this year, how good can they be? They play in a division that's going to be high scoring. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, the Lions are going to be a top defense in fantasy. But when you talk about a unit and just an interesting metric there, I was pretty surprised when I was taking a look at their secondary.
Yeah, they're to your point, I think I get kind of scared off too when you think about them having to play like the Vikings and the Packers, right? And being in that division. But overall, interesting because they might take a step back on offense with no Ben Johnson and might have to double down on what they can do on the defensive side of the ball. One of the ones that was interesting to me as I was prepping for the show was the Titans. Least passing yards allowed, least first downs allowed. And the kind of weird juxtaposition there is they were bottom 3 in sacks. And so it's like, I don't know how they continue to, be that good out of a pass defense if they can't pressure the passer. Like, they made a couple investments. They brought in former Bronco Draymond Jones, who they should probably win their starting edge rusher position. But even him, he hasn't been like a high volume sack guy the past few years. So just thought that one was interesting. I'm certainly not saying that I think that they're going to be like a top defense this year just based on like the roster, but was really, I don't know if that was something I'd imagine you've been tracking a little bit too, just saying like, for as bad as they were having the number one overall pick, like least passing yards allowed, least first downs allowed. So thought that was interesting.
They were, Honestly, like the Titans were like a stingy defense last year, where it was like not overall like a really, really good unit, but just like they just played tough. It could just be a product of like, hey, we don't expect that offense to put up a ton, so the opposing team is not gonna, try to air it out and be in
Right.
shootouts, and is not gonna like open up the offense too crazy because they don't need to. So maybe that's part of it. But the Titans were an interesting defense. I streamed them a lot last year. I don't know. I'm gonna take a look here actually because now I'm interested. Yeah, so I actually picked the Titans last year as a streamer a few times, and in week 4 they finished 7th, and in week 9 they finished 6th, and they were at the time 25% owned or less. And so just again another testament to just streaming defenses where they made an impact those weeks, and pretty much available in mostly every single league. So, yeah, I mean that's a good call out. I wasn't thinking the Titans when you posed this question.
Yeah, it was a funky question, but I thought it was kind of fun. So let's talk about kind of the other end of the spectrum. Like we talked about defenses, we expect to improve and stuff, but a lot of the how you should be thinking about defenses in fantasy is like, who do I want to pick on, right? Like Panthers run defense was a great example last year. You could throw me out there as a running back, and I was going to get 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Is there a defense that you expect to be picking on this year?
It's easy. It's the Bengals.
That's a great one.
It feels so easy to just say the Bengals. I mean, they lost Sam Hubbard, they lost Sheldon Rankins, no Trey Hendrickson in camp right now. Their first round rookie edge defender who was supposed to be like next to Hendrickson is not even in camp, still unsigned. It's and then the offense again. We talked about the Titans, right? Where like maybe they don't have an offense that like scares you, so like you don't feel like maybe you need to like air it out. You have the Bengals offense who is going to score a lot of points. So like I think defensively, like you pick on that defense, right? Because you know it's going to be high scoring games. You know that the Bengals offense can put up points and can get you in a shootout pretty easily. And so because of that, like you target that defense, and it's pretty much a great matchup and was a great matchup like every week last year.
Yeah, great call out. I love that answer. I think you kind of stole the words out of my mouth just in terms of like one of the best offenses in football mixed with one of the worst defenses in football equals a team that you can kind of pick on the defensive side of the ball. So let's close it out here a little. So are you in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania?
Just outside. Yeah, I'm in PA. I'm just outside of PA. So this is a good topic here.
Are you a Eagle, like your Broncos is your main team? Do you still root for the Eagles?
It's funny because on my show last year in my other YouTube channel, I was the only one that took the Eagles to beat the Chiefs out of like 8 of us. Now I'm a Broncos fan, so maybe that's partially why I took them, but I also I've truly loved what the Eagles have done from a team building standpoint.
Same.
On defense. They've just done such a good job, and they're just such a fun team to watch, in my opinion. So it was easy to root for them. I am a Phillies fan, and that was before I moved to Pennsylvania. I'm from Jersey, so I was always a Phillies fan. I'm a Broncos fan. Basketball, it was a Lakers fan, but I can't really tell you the last time I sat down and really watched a full basketball game. I just don't pay attention to it anymore. So.
Oh man, Nikola Jokic, Denver Nuggets, baby. I mean, I'm born in Colorado, so I'm just like all the Colorado teams, but Jokic is a fun guy to watch. But okay, so the question is I think it's these two, and then they're kind of a tier above is the Broncos defense and the Eagles defense. Who is the best defense in the NFL?
I am gonna go with the Eagles. As much as I love Denver, I do think they still have some holes ish. Like Nick Bonito had a great year last year. I still have concerns about his size, right? Jonathan Cooper, they re-signed, like I think outplayed expectations for his draft status. They have Greenlaw, who let's see if he stays healthy. You have Alex Singleton, who came back from an injury, torn ACL. So like I'm worried that like, is it going to be Singleton? Is it going to be Strenad? Right? Like I have some concerns there a little bit, and for some slight regression, at least in the front seven, because they did have a ton of sacks last year.
Yeah, led the league.
Zach Allen was amazing. I
Yep.
mean, maybe there's some regression there. I think the secondary will be amazing. PJ Locke, we just found out, had like back surgery, like some strange back surgery that's like never been done before by an NFL player, and so that was kind of strange. So and that's all to say, like I think the Denver's going to be really good defensively, but I think there are more question marks there than it is with the Eagles, who retain Zach Bond, right? You do have Milton Williams did leave, but they brought in Jihad Campbell, who I think was of course the Eagles get another guy to fall to them, like just typical every year.
Yeah.
And I just think that secondary, who's super young, is going to get another year together under Fangio, right? Like this is finally a year where like they have continuity at the defensive coordinator spot as well. And the Fangio defense is a tough defense to learn. And so he's going to be there for another year, which I think should help a lot of those young guys. So I'm going to go with the Eagles, but it's not really a knock on Denver. The Eagles are just so deep, man. They're so deep.
And what's awesome about them is like, it's all built through the draft, right? So these guys, like, they don't need to go out and, to your point, replace someone if they lose them on the defensive line, because they've got so many freaking ballers waiting in the wings. And one of the questions that was on the show sheet that I skipped over was like, rookie defender you're most excited about. My answer was Jihad Campbell. Just
it was
like
mine too.
Solid. Oh, cool. Solid size, solid athleticism. The second the Eagles take him, you're like, yeah, I knew he was going to be good. Now I really know he's going to be good. And kind of like could see him doing a multitude of things, right? Rushing the passer, dropping back in coverage against running backs and tight ends. So they're an awesome team. I will also give it to the Eagles, but I don't think I'm like as worried about regression as you are with the Broncos. Like I think they could take another step forward this year if Hufanga and Greenlaw return to form like they were with the 49ers. We added, one of the best cornerbacks in the entire draft with Jahdae Barron.
Yeah.
And I think we've got, a secondary that could match up with Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, and the Eagles. So, and then to your point, all the guys that returned for the Broncos, we call them Sack Allen around these parts, Zach Allen. I like Nick Bonito. I mean, there was at one point in the year where like people were thinking he could have been the defensive player of the year. And that actually went to another Broncos player, Pat Surtain, right? So we've got some ballers. I think we're going to be a great defense. I think there will be weeks where I'm not looking to roll them out just based on, even that's kind of my strategy is like, even if you're the best defense in the league, if I think to your point, the over-under is unfavorable and you're in an away game, like I might just look for something a little more compelling, on a streaming aspect. But overall, I think we agree those are two of the best defenses in the league. So great having you on the show today, man. Wanted to keep it tight, but I think this was really insightful for the viewers. Can you tell them anything kind of closing out, any work you want to point them to that you do, where they can find you on X, all that stuff?
Yeah. You can find me on X at Supernova38 with 2 R's. If you are tuned into the Player Profiler, I do risers and fallers with Chuck Bass on a weekly basis. I have been doing some other videos, standalone videos as well. So you can find me there. And then obviously you can also find me, like I said, on X. I also do have another channel. It's called First Read Fantasy. It's just my personal channel, just doing some stuff outside of here at Player Profiler. So you can support me there as well. But yeah, a lot of fun. Appreciate you having me on, and hope to be on soon again.
Yeah, man. Thank you for joining. And viewers, if you like this, give it a like. If you got questions for Pete and I, leave a comment. And then as always, stay subscribed to the Player Profiler page. We're going to keep fire coming to your ears and eyes all year long. So thank you for watching and good luck winning your fantasy leagues.